Kevin Feige said it best over a decade ago. Marvel Studios wants the movies to have the rhythm that the comic books have. Characters will appear in their own films and then come together for a big event or crossover series, and then have Avengers films acting as the big, giant linchpins. And that seems like a great plan. So what happened over the last couple years? Well, arguably, Marvel fell off that rhythm Kevin mentioned by introducing so many new characters. Adding new characters is not a bad thing. We would only have a fraction of the MCU if Marvel only focused on a few select characters. But there's a right and a wrong way to introduce new people. To win back good faith of the disappointed fans who left, Marvel needs to refocus on characters audiences previously loved. Instead of having a lukewarm audience with a lukewarm mindset be introduced to characters with middling reception. I'm not here to beat up on Marvel like a lot of other people are doing. Granted, a lot of the current criticisms are warranted, but there are some good aspects of these projects being lost in the hurricane of everything else. I want to be able to highlight those, as well as looking at the facts analytically from a logical standpoint. In addition to focusing on why established characters and team-ups are important, I'm also going to get into why and how Marvel should introduce these new characters. First, let's look at the box office numbers. How much has each movie made in their theatrical runs? Everyone put on your math glasses because we're diving into numbers and percentages. At the time of this video, there are 33 MCU movies released in theaters. Of those 33 movies, 20 have been sequels or team-up movies. That leaves 13 as origin stories. And I'm including Black Widow's movie here because even though Natasha has been a character we've loved for many years, this movie also served as an origin story for Yelena, who is the MCU's new Black Widow. So almost 2/3 of the movies released have been movies that have focused on expanding established characters. Looking at the worldwide box office, for the top 11 MCU movies, that's 1/3 of the Marvel movies released, 9 have been sequels or team-up movies. In fact, if we pull our scope out a little further, 2/3 of the top earning Marvel movies, that's 22 Marvel movies, 17 have been team-ups and sequels, and only 5 have been introduction movies. There are more than 3 times as many sequels and team-up top earners than there are origin stories. And to further drive the point home, this means that more than half of the origin stories are in the lowest third of money-making MCU movies. Some of you may leap to the defense of some movies like Shang-Chi, Eternals, and Black Widow, which is totally fair. These movies released during COVID, so people were still hesitant to go back to theaters, which hurt some of these totals. And additionally, Black Widow had lawsuits that happened. It also released to streaming early, which undercut the box office sales, and this movie came out after Natasha died in Endgame. But even if you take these movies out of consideration, or even if you give them a bump up the list, the team-up movies and sequels are still dominating the box office. Why is that? Well, I think there are a couple factors at play. But I think the biggest factor is that we treat these characters like they're our real friends. And we should put them in that context to have it make more sense. It's kind of like meeting a new person. When you meet a new character, it takes us a while for us to get used to them and get to know them. And if we decide we like them, we're happy to see them again, and usually we'll learn more about them too. But it kind of takes time for us to warm up to characters. Picture this example. Your boyfriend Bruce invites you to a family barbecue, so you can meet and care about his family. You know your boyfriend Bruce, you hang out with him all the time. And you kind of know his little sister Diana, so that's 2-ish people you know going in. But then you're introduced to cousin Barry, and Uncle Arthur, and bionic stepbrother Victor, and look, Grandpa Clark is back from the dead. How did that happen? And who invited the crazy neighbor, Mr. Steppenwolf? Steppenwolf? How is there enough time to explain and care about what's happening in everyone's lives in the course of one party? For those of you who followed that crazy example, you see where this is going. This is what DC did with the DCEU, specifically with Justice League. This was a movie plagued with problems throughout production, but it didn't help that 3 of the 6 main characters had their first full appearance in this movie. The movie didn't give audiences enough time to learn and care about Flash, Cyborg, and Aquaman, plus explaining bringing Superman back, and also trying to set up why we should care about the main villain and his motivations. And not just DC, but many studios who jumped in on the great shared universe race ended up having their universes crumble. Universal's Dark Universe, Ghostbusters, King Arthur, to name a few, that either never really got off the ground or didn't receive the critical reception they were looking for. The Avengers worked because we understood most of the characters by the time we hit the big team-up movie. We knew Captain America, Iron Man, and Thor from their movies. Nick Fury, Hawkeye, Black Widow, and Loki were all known from their previous supporting roles. That's 7 of our 8 important characters that we didn't need to be introduced to. And Bruce Banner got a soft reboot / introduction as well, because, Edward Norton was there and then left, so they still needed Hulk, but they switched actors. Anyway, in the Avengers movie, we didn't have to spend a long time on the just getting to know you phase. We moved right into the meaty, let's dig deeper at who these characters are and where their limits lie. That's not to say you can't introduce new characters in team-ups or sequels. Marvel has pulled this off many, many times. Scarlet Witch was introduced in Age of Ultron. We understood her motivations, which was her anger at Stark, and she even had great character moments, like realizing she should stand up for what's right and help the Avengers save Sokovia. The same for Black Panther, who was introduced in Captain America: Civil War. His motivation was to go after Bucky for killing his dad, but his revelation that vengeance was not the answer allowed him to turn a new leaf. There was enough time to humanize these characters and allow us to empathize with them, both in ways that ultimately serviced and didn't detract from the overall story being told. And I believe that's a large reason why many die-hard Marvel fans have become indifferent over the last few years. On top of introducing so many new characters and not focusing on the ones we already love, these new characters largely aren't given enough focus on being fleshed out. For example, Taskmaster and Black Widow. And to give old movie Taskmaster a leg up in this fight, I'll put aside her skilled and quippy comic book counterpart that was left on the screenwriting table. The biggest issue here is that movie Taskmaster had a mind control chip, which means she didn't need to study, train, or put any motivation into developing her weapon or hand-to-hand combat skills. A chip did all the work for her, and it was literally there to null her emotions and senses. She has no free will, and because of this, we don't get much character out of Antonia. No emotion and no motivation makes it very hard for an audience to connect with her. Dreykov does a little bit better, but he still falls pretty flat compared to earlier villains. Marvel's philosophy from the beginning has been highlighting lesser-known heroes, but they lost sight of what made Iron Man and Guardians of the Galaxy work versus Eternals and the abundance of characters introduced in many of their TV shows like Secret Invasion. I'll leave you with this last thought. Over a decade ago, back in Phase 2, Kevin Feige said that in an ideal world, the Marvel Studios releases for each year would include 1 film for an established character and 1 featuring a new. And that was pretty much the case until Phase 4. Phases 1 through 3 went back and forth between new characters and established characters, releasing between 2 to 4 movies each year. In 2021, 9 projects released. 6 of them introduced new mainline characters. In 2022, 9 projects. And in 2023, 6 projects. Every one of them introduced at least 1 new relevant MCU character. When you take into account productions introducing new characters like Shang-Chi and Eternals, that's 10 Eternals, those new character numbers shoot up real high, real quick. It's clear that Marvel, likely by the hands of Disney, really pushed quantity over quality, but this hurt Marvel in the long run. And if Marvel wants to get back in everyone's good favors, they need to turn their attention back to writing quality productions for characters we love and want to see more of. Once Marvel has that in order, then we can go back to introducing new characters that hopefully we'll all love as much as Iron Man and Scarlet Witch. Did you enjoy this video, or did you hate it? Let me know in the comments below, and while you're there, you can also tell me what kind of videos you want to see next. Thanks for watching.